would you guys stand and give a warm welcome to National Sales Director Allison Lamar.
Well, hello. Sit down. I am so thrilled and honored to be here with you in Atlanta. Are y'all excited about what we're going to talk about today? Yeah. Oh, man. We have a fun afternoon planned, and I hope that you have had your coffee because I'm about to talk as fast as I can possibly talk because honestly, I feel like whenever I'm just asked to share my journey that I could talk for days and days and days and days of all the things that I have fallen in love with about this great company. And we have 3 hours to cram it all in. So I can talk really fast if you can listen really fast. Is that fair? Can y'all do that? Okay, good. Now I have to tell you, I was thinking on the way here, okay, what could I possibly have to share that Atlanta would want to hear, that you here in Georgia and Florida would really be able to benefit from? And there are times that I feel like I could talk on anything you want me to talk on. I feel like I could do anything, but whenever I stop and think about it, it's because I really have just been so blessed to be surrounded by such a great support team and such a great, honestly, my consultants, my directors, my office staff, they are so good that they make me feel like I can do anything. But if I were to really sit down and start thinking about what I could teach you and what I really feel qualified to share with you on, the list can dwindle really quickly. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. For example, a couple weeks ago I was doing a consultant event. This was before we moved to Los Angeles, which was only like 10 days ago. I've been in California for 10 days, and I've been out of California for 8 of those 10 days. So don't ask me what it's like to be from California yet, because I haven't quite adjusted to that. But this was right before we moved, and we were doing a Star Consultant celebration in my home, and people were coming through and complimenting me on the house, and, oh, your house is so beautiful, and it looks so great, and I kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I thought about it later, I was like, why am I saying thank you? I didn't have nothing to do with the way this house looks, I mean, my money paid for it, but that's about all that I had to do with it, because I do not have a lick of decoration sense whatsoever, okay? And whenever we go, out in public or whatever, and I get complimented on my outfit, I automatically say thank you, but I have to tell you, before every top director trip, before every event I ever go on, I grab a couple of directors and take them shopping with me, because I cannot pick off 2 things, off of the rack and put them together to save my life. Like the stores where you walk in and it's racks and racks and racks and racks of clothes, you will never catch me in a store like that, because unless it is put together in the window and I can go, I will take that, there is no way I could ever pick out an outfit. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, even if I think of things like, health and fitness, I mean, I could teach you theory all day long of things that I've read, but as far as actually, applying them myself is a completely different ballgame. And, even when you transfer that into Mary Kay, I will be honest with you, I have never had 1,000 customers. On the days when I was really working my Mary Kay business as a consultant in the field building in the beginning, when I had 100 customer profiles, I was like so excited I couldn't even think straight. And let me tell you what, my sales director, Amber Carter, that came up here and introduced me a couple of minutes ago, she is here with us this week because she earned herself a double gold medal last month. She had 11 new personal team members last month, and so she is here today. We're celebrating her, so I brought her with me from Texas to celebrate her accomplishment. And I will share something with you. I've never had a gold medal. How many of you are surprised by that? How many of you have had a gold medal? Okay, hello. See what I'm saying? Okay? I've had more bronze medals than I can count, but there's something about the gold medal, it eludes me to this day. Okay, it's going to be one of those things that I'm going to do before I die, just because I can't go on and keep saying over and over again in public that I've never had a gold medal. Okay? But here is why I want to tell you that. I share those with you just right now out of the beginning to give you a little bit of hope that you don't have to be perfect in every single area to reach your finish line. If you just keep going and you have the right attitude, like Mary Kay said, you can do everything wrong with the right attitude and still end up on top, right? But she also said it's so important to always do the right thing, no matter what. And so there's a difference between doing everything wrong and always doing the right thing. Are y'all with me on that? So now that I've told you all the things I can't do, let's talk about why we are here today. And you know, I was thinking, okay, what could I stand up here and just not regurgitate someone else's lesson on, and that I'm not standing up here sharing through with you. And so I really sat down and thought, what are the things that I could personally share with you? And I'm just going to share with you what those are very quickly to get us going, and then you can tell me if you think that it's something you would like to hear more about. Would that be fair enough? Okay, I can share with you how to identify what it is that you really, really, really want. Number one. Number two, I can share with you how to cut through all the fluff and really identify the plan to help you get from point A to point B. Would that be good for you? Okay, and then the third thing that I can share with you is how to get over yourself and rise above the drama enough to actually get the job done. Are we speaking the same language? Okay, good. Then let's just go ahead and get started. And I made a list of some of the things that I just want to make sure that we cover in our conversation together today. But honestly, I'm going to share my background tonight. So just to maximize our time together, what I'd like to do is to start our journey today with when I was a brand new beauty consultant, and some of the things that I have had to change along the way, and all the things that I've had to be willing to learn and grow through from the time I was a new beauty consultant. Do you know, on Saturday I will have my 4-year anniversary with Mary Kay. So the past 4 years have been a total crash course in personal growth for me. And it has been a wild ride, but I absolutely would not change it for the world. And I would just love to share some of the things with you that have made a big difference in my life and my results over the last 4 years. And I will tell you that I was first introduced to the products about 5 years ago. Up until that point, even though I was living in Dallas, Texas, which many of you have been to multiple times for Mary Kay Seminar, I was living in the heartland of Mary Kay, right there in the headquarters of our corporation. And I'd never met a Mary Kay consultant. I had never tried a Mary Kay product. So don't you dare ever buy into the lie that we are in a saturated market, because you get what you're looking for. And so I'd never met a consultant, I'd never tried the products, and the only way I ever even agreed to try the products in the first place was because a really good friend of mine had just started her own Mary Kay business and invited me to part of her Power Start. And I really was not interested at all in the products. I wasn't looking for a good skincare routine, I wasn't looking for pampering, I wasn't looking for a facial, but I just went to help her out. And through the course of that facial, of course, I fell in love with the products. And I became one of her very best customers, but I will share with you, I was dead broke at the time. And I'll talk about that more tonight, but I was broke, and in Dallas we have this thing called broke snobs. I don't know if y'all have those in Georgia or not, but it's where you are dead broke, but you do not like the fact that you're broke, so you shop like you're not broke, you spend like you're not broke, and you make fun of everybody else for being broke, and then it makes you not feel so bad about being broke. Okay, do you know any broke snobs? Have you ever been a broke snob? Okay, so I was very much a broke snob, and rather than tell her that I couldn't afford her products, I felt much more comfortable just lying through my teeth and telling her that I did not want her products. So don't always give in too quickly when people tell you that they're not interested. We can be pleasantly persistent, right? I did purchase a vanilla icicles from her at that facial, and I promptly returned it to her the next day because I couldn't figure out how to use it. You know, she was as new to Mary Kay as I was, and by the time I got done with that vanilla icicles, it was all over my face. You know, there is an art to the icicles, okay? Now that I've learned to use it, I use it every single day. I led the campaign to have the icicles reinstated, you know, like, I mean, I know many of you did as well, and so it was my own little private celebration moment whenever they came back. But to this day, I am very, very loyal to them, but at the time, I couldn't figure them out. But over the time, she being the very good, very loyal, very consistent, very obedient beauty consultant that she was, did exactly what her sales director told her to do, and once a quarter, even though I wasn't a great customer of hers at the time, I still got the lookbook in the mail. And would you believe I got 4 of those suckers before I ever opened one? And just as fate would have it, in May of 2003, as I was getting more and more and more miserable with my job at the bank, she was getting more and more and more excited about her business with Mary Kay. And through that process, she had actually resigned from her corporate job and was now doing Mary Kay full time. And I came home from one of the worst days at work I had ever had. And the spring 2003 lookbook was waiting for me in my mailbox. How many of you were around in Mary Kay in spring of 2003? Okay, I don't know if you remember this lookbook or not, but it was one of those days where, just out of sheer self-pity, I sat down to live vicariously through someone else and just kind of started flipping through that lookbook, trying to see what was out there. And I came across this beautiful brunette model who was featuring jade eyeshadow. And I had never a day in my life worn green eyeshadow. And so I don't know what came over me, but I just picked up the phone and I called her and I said, "Christy, get over here and make me look like this girl." And do you know, my phone call to her came on her second day of DIQ. So I share that with you for a couple of reasons. Lesson number 1 is never, ever, 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 ever give up on people that you believe in. Because let me just share with you, I have made her a little bit of cash in the last 4 years that have more than made up for those 4 lookbooks. Would you agree? Okay, number 2 lesson is, do not wait on anyone. She never gave up on me, but had she waited on me, who knows where any of us would be today, because she certainly wouldn't have been in DIQ if she was waiting on me, and I may not have been impressed with her story had she not been in DIQ to really start asking her more questions. So again, needless to say, being the very good, loyal, consistent, obedient DIQ that she had become, it did not take her long to get that facial scheduled with me. And I forget, you know, a few days later, she came over to the house, and it was, I had offered to cook and for the facial, and so I was letting her pick out her favorite flavor of frozen dinner. And you know how those things happen and they become defining moments in your life. You can like remember exactly where you were standing or what you were doing and what you were wearing at the time of the conversation. And I remember we were in my kitchen in Allen, Texas, just a little north of Dallas, and I had taken the frozen dinner and I had kind of turned to put it in the microwave. You know, and the box was like mid-air, when just out of casual conversation, I said, "So, Christy, you know, tell me, how's the whole Mary Kay thing going?" You know, just small talk. And she said, "Well, it's actually going pretty well. I'm on target for a free car." And I didn't know a thing about Mary Kay, but I knew what free car meant, you know? And I did not have a free car payment. And so you know, just kind of the wheels started spinning in my head, and I thought, this is it. I'm gonna catch her. I'm gonna figure out what's going on over there and just really, you know, put an end to this nonsense. And I said, "Really?" I said, "On target, you know, what does that mean exactly?" And so she started telling me about it, and she also told me that she was just starting DIQ and all these things. And so I started just grilling her out of morbid curiosity. And this 30-minute follow-up facial turned into a 3-hour interview where I interviewed her. And she pulled out the Applause magazine and was showing me all the different pictures and the stories and the income potential and all those things. And she did know my financial situation. She knew how broke I was, so she had no shame in starting with the money. because she knew, have you noticed that whenever you don't have enough money, it's all you think about? And so she was very smart and started there with me. And I looked at the Applause magazine and I flipped through the different pages of the lists of the income potential. And I looked at her and said, Christy, this is fantastic. And I really think this is a cute little publication you've got here. But if I were to try hard enough, hello, I am in marketing. I could make one of these on my computer if I tried hard enough. So how do I really know that you can make this happen? And she said, well, we do have this thing called the advance brochure, and this was back when the advance brochure was printed in hard copy publication. She said, and it will show you exactly how to move up all the different positions on the career path to make this kind of money. I said, well, great. Do you have one? And she said, well, yeah, there's one in my car. And I said, well, great. Can you go get it? So she went out to the car, and the reason I'm telling you all this detail is because, again, there was a lesson to be learned in this as I looked back on this, is that she was overly prepared. What we were able to knock out in one conversation could have taken the average bear a few weeks to get around to doing. And when you miss that window, there's no guarantee that you'll ever get it back, right? So you really want to make sure that you are prepared for when the opportunity presents itself. So I will share with you that I went to bed that night after reading, and literally she sat there and stared at me while I read the advance brochure cover to cover. I was an information junkie at the time. And so I wanted to read it, and I wanted proof that this was something that I could do. So I went to bed that night really believing that I should become a national sales director with Mary Kay. How many of you believe that you should become a national sales director with Mary Kay? Okay? Now, of course, my viewpoint of what a national sales director was and did at the time was a little different, but it was enough for me. Okay? And I wish I could tell you that I got started and I signed my agreement that night and really got on, the show on the road, but that is not the case, because I had to have more information. So she left me with a book that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. It's called More Than a Pink Cadillac by Jim Underwood. And that book is the reason that I finally decided to start my business, because it was an outside, third-party, non-biased endorsement of our company. And I will share with you just a little side note. My consultants and I right now are going through the book together. We're reading a chapter a week and having a discussion about it on a conference call. And as I'm reading the book all over again, I'm remembering why it was that I fell in love with this company 4 years ago and what it was. You know what's so cool about this is sometimes when we hear other small-minded people about the company and about the direct sales industry, it can make us forget why we're proud of who we are. And when I've been rereading this book of literally this man, if I have the story right, he is a Harvard graduate, Baylor professor. And he he was doing a case study and actually went in search of the company that most embodied what he had identified as the 9 essential keys to leadership success. So he had these 9 qualities, and he was interviewing and researching several different companies to find the one company to write the book on that most embodied these qualities. And he found them in Mary Kay. And that's where the book came from. So if you've not read it yet, if you just want to see an outside person's perspective on just, even, last night I was reading the part about the Mary Kay marketing plan, and how well do you think I know the marketing plan? I feel like I've done a pretty good job of taking advantage of the Mary Kay marketing plan over the last 4 years, but reading it through the eyes of someone else just made me get excited about it all over again. So I read that book, and I decided that I should give Mary Kay a try. And I also wish I could tell you that from the day I signed my agreement forward, that it was smooth sailing, that it was, the rest is history right out of the gate. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And for about 5 or 6 months, I was a walking frustration to myself. I impressed absolutely no one for the first 5 or 6 months. And I got into this great routine of setting goals and missing goals, and setting goals and missing goals. and setting. Have any of you ever played this game with yourself, Okay. And here's the deal. The reason that I wanted to become a sales director is because I wanted the freedom. That's what I saw Mary Kay as, was my ticket out of the rat race. And so I knew what my current income was, I knew what my credit card debt was, and I knew what kind of income I had to be pulling in on a monthly basis to get the heck out of the rat race. And I knew that I had to be a sales director to be able to consistently count on that type of income. I also had done my homework enough to know that you had to have 8 people to get started with DIQ. How many? You could be brand new, but you got that one covered. You know what it takes, okay? So I thought, okay, clearly, I think this is a good idea. Why wouldn't everybody else? I mean, how hard could it be to find 8 team members? Never mind that it took me a solid year of watching my friend to decide that this was a good idea for me. But now that it was my idea, I just knew that, let's get 8 in, let's get started. And so I signed my beauty consultant agreement in May. I had my business debut in June, and I set my goal for DIQ on July 1st, of course. Guess how many team members I had at the end of that month? My mother. Okay, so my mom was my sole team member by the end of that month. And so then I set my goal for DIQ on August 1st. And in the course of August, and in the course of July and working toward that goal, I went to my very first Mary Kay seminar. How many of you have not been to your first seminar yet? Is there anybody in this room? Oh my gosh, I know you're all already registered, because registration just started on May 1st. But I went to my first seminar, and I did manage to squeak into my red jacket just in time for seminar. Now, it hadn't come in the mail yet, so I looked like I was sneaking into all the red jacket classes at seminar, but I think I actually qualified like 5 minutes before I got there. And so, in sitting in that arena, I fell in love with the dream. And I watched those national sales directors glide across that stage, and that dream was solidified in my heart that day. And I was convinced, until I went to new national sales director training in February, I was convinced from that first seminar until like 2 months ago that they taught gliding to do national sales directors. And they do not. I was so disappointed that there was no class on how to glide across the seminar stage, okay? But here's the deal. What I fell in love with those national sales directors was the look on their faces. I heard them talking about the money, I heard them talking about the trips, I heard them talking about the cars and the diamonds, but more than all of those things was the look on their faces. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Just that total demeanor of confidence and poise and grace and joy and excitement and passion and energy and love. And I thought, I have no idea what it is that they actually do every day, but I want to be a part of it, because if I could exude that, then I want to be where they are. And so my national sales director told me that first seminar, as the group of us were getting ready to leave, she said, "Don't you dare leave this building without a dream in your heart for where you will come back next year." And so I knew that I wanted to be a national sales director, but I didn't really think it was totally achievable in that first year. So I decided I had to lower my standards a little bit. And I had seen the jewelry, the jewelry case. And honestly, I really didn't ever think that I was motivated by jewelry until I realized that it was a possibility. And so I saw this beautiful $500,000 diamond ring. And I decided that that would be a great goal for me for the next seminar year. Now remember, I was a brand new red jacket. But I did not read anywhere on that jewelry case that because it was called $500,000 ring, first of all, I didn't know you had to be a sales director to earn the ring. And secondly, I didn't understand that you had to actually achieve $500,000 in unit sales to earn the ring. I just thought it was the name of the ring, So that was the goal that I set for myself. And nobody even told, when I told them my goal, nobody said, well, let's reconsider. And again, there is another lesson in that, is that be careful. Be careful before you shoot someone's dream down. Be careful before you yank them back into reality in wanting to protect them. Because that ring is on my finger today. And I'll tell you about that story in a little while. But it, again, didn't immediately happen when I got home from that seminar. Because what happened is I caught the dream, but I hadn't mastered the work ethic quite yet. And so from July to August to September to October, I tried my hardest to run this business the Allison Lamar way. And what I learned across those 4, 5, 6 months is that the Allison Lamar way wasn't really working all that well. Okay, and so came home, and needless to say, I did not make it into DIQ by August 1st. I think I didn't have any more team members that month. And then I decided in September, I started crunching the numbers. And I was working about a 50-hour week in corporate banking. I was traveling half the time around the country with my day job, and I was also in graduate school at night and on the weekends at SMU in downtown Dallas in the MBA program. And so I began to really crunch the numbers, and I took my annual salary of what I was making at the bank, and I broke it down into what I would have been making hourly for the time I was putting in. And then I crunched some numbers on what I was earning in the time that I was putting into Mary Kay and what that hourly wage would look like, and I compared the two. And I became painfully aware that I was investing my time in the wrong arena. And so I could not get that thought out of my mind, and I realized, you know what? That this job is nothing more than a safety net to me at this point. And my degree at SMU, my MBA, my self-worth was completely wrapped up in that piece of paper that I was working to earn. And I had to have an honest conversation with myself. Okay, if I really were to give this Mary Kay business 110%, would I ever need that piece of paper? And so I decided, and I had a conversation with my husband, and we really prayed about it and decided that I would resign from the bank and withdraw from the MBA program. And so within a 2-week time period, I did those two things and then called my parents and told them all about it. That's a whole different story. And then I just knew, we had really crunched the numbers and realized that if I had 1 month, I could flip it to where I was making more money with Mary Kay than I was making at the bank. Okay? Here's the problem, is that I totally freaked out whenever I got home. And all of a sudden, I went from having every second of my day accounted for, where I was responsible for 2 certain people, to having absolutely no one to answer to whatsoever, okay? And I went through this 6-week funk of not leaving the house. Like sometimes I brushed my teeth. I mean, it was weird, and I didn't like housework. I didn't like chores. I didn't like the thought of being a stay-at-home wife, but I sure could get myself talked into just that comfort zone for fear of having to put myself on the line. And I mean, y'all, I did crazy things in that 6 weeks. Like, I homemade our Christmas decorations that year. I don't even like arts and crafts, okay? And it was total creative avoidance. Looking back on it, that I was so scared to death that I became absolutely paralyzed. Have any of you ever felt that way? I mean, when you find yourself doing laundry instead of making booking calls, do you like to do laundry? No, but we talk, well, it needs to be done. Please, okay? No. So then the one thing that shocked me back into reality was my husband saying, well, here's the deal. The bills are still coming. Your paycheck, not coming. So you have 2 options. You can either figure this thing out, or we have no choice but that you will have to go find another job, because we lived paycheck to paycheck on both of our incomes combined. So it wasn't like I could afford to just be this cute little floosy housewife that worked when I wanted to, okay? So just the sheer terror of having to go back and become a slave to someone else is what motivated me to get out of the house. At that point, honestly, it was not because I loved my business. It was the lesser of two evils. Okay? So listen to me. It does not matter how you feel about it sometimes. Because when you step out in discipline, the passion and the motivation will follow. I remember Ann Newberry telling me, she said, when the motivation is missing, discipline is a great substitute. So this was in September, end of September now, because I had been out of work for exactly 1 month. And so the first round of bills was starting to come. It's kind of what gave us the shock at our house. And then my sales director called, who was starting to get a little nervous about things because she had met my parents. And she's like, okay, Allison, I know you quit your job. I know you withdrew from school. I can see your reports. What is going on over there? And she said, I have an invitation for you. Our national sales director, my national sales director lived in Colorado and I was in Texas. And they had their fall retreat coming up the following weekend. And their retreat was positioned to the way that you had to be a team leader and above to qualify. And I had 4 team members at the time, so I wasn't qualified to attend. But my director called me and she said, Allison, there's 1 spot open. And if you don't tell, I won't tell. Would you like to come? And I don't know if you've ever priced an out-of-state airline ticket for the next day, but they're not cheap. Okay, so I did the math again. I thought, well, I'm $30,000 in credit card debt, and I have no job. You know, what's another couple thousand going to do? I mean, in the grand scheme of things. You know, it's all relative. Would you agree? But deep down, I realized that if I said no to her, I would have nothing really to stand on when I went to tell her that this didn't work for me. So I went just so that I could have something to say. And I went to that retreat. Let me tell you what happened at that retreat. I tell you this to really affirm the fact that you are here today, because I know some of you are consultants in this room and you work a full-time job and you went through you made some sacrifices and really did some things to get here today, this afternoon. And those who show up, go up, right? And what happened in me sitting at that retreat, there was no magical one-liner or one phrase or even one teacher or one lesson that I can even recall. But what I remember from that retreat is that this big dream that I had caught on the seminar stage 3 months ago became a reality when these women no longer had on formal ball gowns, but they had on khakis. And they were real people to me then. And what I began to realize was that there was no real difference between them and me. The only difference was that I was talking about it and they were doing it. And that just kind of made me mad, you know? And I thought, okay, this is it. And I went home from that retreat that was around the 2nd week of October, and started DIQ on November 1st. And what I learned in those few months, like I mentioned to you a couple minutes ago, was that the Allison Lamar way didn't work all that well, but that the Mary Kay way works just fine. And when I finally let go and just begin to trust the process and begin to work the numbers and to follow the steps that Mary Kay put in place for us, would you believe what started to happen? And so in November and December, were my first couple of months of DIQ, and they were okay. They were fine. I was, making production and meeting all the requirements and all those things. And for our directors and DIQs in the room, and for those of you who are headed in that direction, I'll just share my numbers with you very quickly at that point. My first month of DIQ was like 8,000. My second month of DIQ was 6,000. I mean, they were okay numbers, but they weren't anything just superb, nothing record-breaking, okay? And my third most defining moment in my life came on December 31st, 2003. Number one most defining moment was when I became a Christian. Second most defining moment was when I got married. Third most defining moment was on December 31st, 2003. Instead of going out to celebrate New Year's Eve, my husband and I decided to stay home because, quite frankly, we had nothing to celebrate. And I really could just feel, I just needed to sit down and think. I just needed to be able to process my thoughts and figure out why I was so frustrated and why, even though I had made it into DIQ and the numbers were coming together and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, why wasn't I feeling the way I thought I should be feeling? Have you ever felt that way? And these 3 words kept coming into my mind over and over and over. And I truly believe that God put these words on my heart to never let me forget them. And if you have a pen and a piece of paper, I want you to write these 3 words down. Mediocre is miserable. Mediocre is miserable. And I knew that God did not put me on this planet to live in mediocrity. And I did not start Mary Kay to be mediocre. And so I made a decision on December 31st, 2003, that from that moment, I would step over that line out of mediocrity and into excellence with every single fiber of my being. And girls, I am here to tell you that you are one decision away from the person you want to be. One decision away. Because when I woke up the next morning on January 1st, 2004, it was a whole new year. But what had changed? My house was still the same. The mess was still the same. My husband was still the same. My date book was sadly still the same. My profile box was still the same. The only thing that had changed was my thinking and my approach to my situation. And let me tell you, in that third month of DIQ, I made the decision it would be not my third month, it would be my final month of DIQ, that I was not going to go into month 4. We were going to get this sucker done, and I was going to get on down the road. And in that month, I believe we added like 15, 16 new team members. I can't remember exactly. And we had done 6,000 in production in December. We did 30,000 in January. Nothing but a new thought is all that it takes. And the reason I share that with you is not so that you are impressed, but so that you truly understand that this business is a repeatable process. If one person can do it, 1 million people can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And sales directors in this room, I don't care if you have never done 30,000 in your life. I don't care if you've never done half of 30,000 in your life. You can go home and do it this month if you get good and ready. And it's not about your team. It's not about your customer base. It's about you and what you believe is possible. And not just what you believe, but what you are willing to take action on. And from there, the rest is history. Because all it took for me was a new thought. All it took was a new approach. And it took me stepping out of victim's mentality and just putting up with the circumstances to really controlling the circumstances and not being a control freak, but taking ownership of the results. And taking ownership of the situation, because up until that point, I really had kind of lived my life like the inside of a pinball machine. How many of you ever played with a pinball machine? You know, you pull the little thingy and then it shoots up and the little ball just kind of goes flying all around and the ball just flits around in reaction to whatever landmarks it hits inside. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I had really lived my life, and not that I was a victim, like bad things were happening to me, but I was just living in reactionary mode, dealing with whatever came my way. Have you ever felt that way? Okay, and then so now remember, I had set the goal that I had to be a $500,000 sales director. And by the way, through that process of DIQ, somebody did feel inclined to share with me exactly what the rules were, okay? So I had figured that out. But up until then, I had been, you know how Mary Kay also gives you those little brochures that show you the prizes for the next seminar year, and the jewelry, of course, was in there. And so I had put a little purple sticky tab on the $500,000 page, and every interview I went to, every skincare class I did, every business debut I held, I would pass that thing around and go, if you will open to the purple tab, you will see the ring that Mary Kay is giving me in July of next year. And so literally hundreds of people, by the time I realized what the rules were expecting me to come home from seminar with this $500,000 ring. And let me share something with you. I would rather be buried alive with roaches crawling all over my body than to have to tell somebody I didn't cut it. So I had some work to do. So, by the way, all those seminar prizes, you know, like the sales director prizes, they don't really start the scoreboard until you become a sales director. So while I was really proud of my $30,000 month, it all started at zero on February 1st. So I had 5 months to figure out how to get from zero to $500,000. And let me share with you again that you can do anything in this world. You know, the Bible says that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has in store for those who love him. But we have to be willing to take action. And so in those 5 months, we got our act together and we grew from on February 1st, when we debuted, I had a unit size of 38, 32 were active. And on June 30th, we finished the year with 171 unit members. So, how many of you would like to have some serious growth in the next few months? Here's the cool thing. Every skill that you need, everything that you need to succeed in this business is a teachable, learnable, acquirable skill. So what that means is that you don't need nothing that you can't get to make it to your finish line in this business. Would you agree with that? And if you are not a sales director yet in this business, I want you to raise your hand so I can see who you are. All of our consultants in the room. You'll give our consultants a big round of applause. Let me share something with you, consultants. Directorship is not the finish line. It's the starting line. It's where the whole world of opportunity literally becomes available to you. It's when you earn your ticket into the game. You earn your spot at the starting line. And I think some sales directors, I'm not sure where we get this from, because I know nobody teaches this, but I think sometimes we hear what we want to hear. And becoming a sales director is not cashing in your winning lottery ticket. It's not your entrance into Easy Street. But what it is the most amazing opportunity that if you will be willing to work for what you say you want, it will absolutely blow your mind. Because when you work hard, you also get to play hard. And I have played in ways that I would not have even imagined 4 years ago. I have seen places of this world that, quite honestly, I did not even know existed 4 years ago. And this past year, my husband James and I, we were on the sales director, the top sales director trip. We were the #2 unit in the nation last year, and the #1 director was not able to attend the trip. So guess who got to stay in the top sales director suite? Thank you very much. Every time I see her, I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so sorry you couldn't go, but And let me tell you, on that trip, I really, really, really did not think I would ever come home. And for our sales directors in this room, if you are a sales director, raise your hand so I can see where you are. Ooh, I love our directors. For those of you who can relate to this, that top sales director trip was in our last month of NIQ. So there were a lot of people who thought, why are you here? You know, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm in the top suite. Where else would I be? I mean, how, you know, because if we can't get it together in our last month of NIQ, we don't deserve to be there anyway. So, you know, it is one of those things that when you work, when you need to, you can play when you want to. And it is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So what I thought might be helpful for you is if perhaps I would share some of the lessons that I've had to learn along the journey. And I want to start as a new consultant, kind of even the lessons I had to learn to get out of new consultant status. Because, you know, I signed my agreement, I saw the big picture, but before I could even move into DIQ, before I could really even move along the ranks toward directorship, the biggest thing I had to get over was myself. And I had to swallow my pride. And, you know, one of the, I think it's kind of a generational thing. You know, my grandparents grew up as children through the Great Depression. And so the qualities that they taught to my parents were just be grateful for what you do have and work really, really, really hard for those 3 squares a day and for that plot of land that God has given us, and you work hard, but don't expect much. But then what my parents taught to us, because, you know, by the time I'm considered Generation Y, and I honestly think it should be called Generation Why Not. Because that's kind of the way that we approach the world. If you know any Generation Yers, or if you are or live with a Generation Yer, it's like, I mean, from the time we were born, people had been walking on the moon for years. You know, so what isn't possible? But the problem, and I think that, you know, we can learn everything. We can just learn from each other and learn from all the different generations that have come before us. And what our parents taught us, and one of the things that somehow even though we taught and we were learned the expected all, we kind of inherited a little bit of a silver spoon mentality of that we just think we deserve everything. But somewhere along the way, from when our grandparents worked so hard, we lost that sense of pride in our work ethic. And if we were to take that work ethic from our grandparents and couple it with the abundance mentality that we have, this is the perfect arena to run your race when you couple those two together. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? So I want to share with you, across the last 4 years, my 4 secrets to success. Would you like to know them? Okay. My number 1 secret to success is there are no secrets. Unfortunately, there is no magic feather. Truly, this business is a proven business plan that has stood the test of time. And if we will just let go and trust the process, National Sales Director Cindy Williams taught me to be too dumb to doubt. Do you know what that means? Stop second guessing everything, stop questioning, stop overanalyzing, and just trust the process. There are no secrets. This business works when you do. Secret number 2 is you got to dream big. And then you got to dream bigger. So here's what I want you to do. Under number 2, I want you to write down right now, if you were just to stop and think about your wildest Mary Kay dream, what do you think it would be? I want you to write it down. You got it? I mean, you really, literally, I want you to write it down. Did y'all do that? Okay, good. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to put your pen down for just a second, and I want you to close your eyes. Seriously. Don't fall asleep. Just close your eyes, okay? And for the next 30 seconds, I want you to start with that dream that you just have. I see you looking at me. You better close your eyes. Okay. I want you to take that dream, and I want you to dream bigger. I want you to stretch it. I want you to force yourself to stretch your mind. Like it's so big that you're almost embarrassed to even think it. If somebody saw it, you would feel ridiculous. You got it? Okay, what would it look like? What would your life look like if you were living in that dream today? What would you look like? What kind of clothes would you wear? Where would you live? What would your family say? How would their circumstances change? Okay, now I want you to open your eyes. And I want you to write that down. And nobody's looking at your paper. So it doesn't matter. I remember National Sales Director Jan Harris told me, she said, if other people aren't laughing at your dream, then it's not big enough. Now, how many of you have ever set a goal and missed a goal in Mary Kay? I remember the first time I ever heard Gloria speak, I heard her say, if you haven't set a goal and missed a goal in Mary Kay, then it just means you haven't set your goal big enough yet. Because success doesn't depend on whether or not you miss your goal. Because you flat out will miss some goals. So this whole fear of failure, risk of failure thing, get over it. We're going to miss some goals. We're going to fall down. And that's okay, because success is not determined by whether or not you fall down. It's determined by whether or not you get back up, right? And so long as you get back up more times than you fall down, you're in the right position. And Mary Kay herself said that her knees were the bloodiest knees of all from all the times that she had fallen down. So you've got to dream big. Now, I also want you to understand the difference between a dream and a goal, because this is important. This is really important. Your Mary Kay goals would be things like red jacket, directorship, Cadillac, trip, court of sales, court of sharing. Those things are goals. But how many of you were dreaming of the court of sharing? Like somehow just before you'd ever even heard of Mary Kay, God bestowed in your mind the dream of someday I'm going to find a place to be on the National Court of Sharing. Do you see the difference? Okay, your goal is a means by which you reach your life dreams. Your goal becomes the launching pad to help you attain those dreams. Make sense? Like, let me give you an example. My dream is silly. I don't even tell this to a lot of people. My dream is to own a horse ranch. I don't even ride horses, but my dream is to own a horse ranch, okay? But becoming a national sales director and the income and the freedom that I have through this position will help allow me to reach that dream that I have for my family. Make sense? Now, when you look back at your dream that you just wrote down, is it a goal or a dream? Okay? If it is a goal, I want you to think about what your dream would be. What is it? Why is it that you're motivated to reach that thing? And if you wrote down a dream, I want you to just in parentheses kind of next to it, I want you to write down what goals you're going to need to achieve to help you realize that dream. Are y'all following me here? Okay. So by the time you're done scribbling in just a second, you're going to have both your dream and your goal written on that piece of paper. And I've told some of you this story before, but when I was a kid, I remember following my dad around, and I would just rattle off this laundry list of things that I wanted to be and see and do, and places I wanted to go and things I wanted to have. And he would always respond with one of two things. He would either say, well, sister, as long as you're dreaming, you may as well dream big. Or he would say, dream on, little dreamer. And that is exactly what we have to do. You can never lose sight of that dream. Because we are, God plants those dreams within our heart for a very specific purpose. Because through our pursuit of that dream, we can equip other people to reach their own dreams and call them into the life of excellence that they have been designed for as well. But you know that God never places our dreams within our comfort zone. Nobody just ends up at their dream on accident. No one wakes up one day and goes, oops, I'm successful. Now, how did that happen? But guess what? Whenever you start to press those boundaries of your comfort zone, guess who's going to show up to make sure you come back to reality? And everyone inside that comfort zone. But God does not place a dream within your heart without giving you the ability to achieve that dream. But if faith weren't required for you to achieve that dream, you wouldn't need God to reach that dream. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you've got to find that dream. But somewhere along the way, when we reach the grown-up world, what happens? Somehow we move out of the land of dreams into the land of just enough. And where we think, well, now I'm an adult, I have to settle because the bills have to be paid. And if you do not even know what your dream is right now, maybe that needs to be your first dream, is to figure out your dream. Do not let your head even hit your pillow tonight until you have that dream solidly formed. Or at least until you schedule some time to get alone and really think, if I could be the person I really feel like I was put on this earth to be, what would I look like? What would I act like? What would my life look like? What things are on my list of things that I pretty much find myself doing every day right now, that if I were living in the person that God put me to be, what might not be on that list? Or what are some things that I'm not doing right now, that if I were living in that dream, if that dream were a reality, what would I be doing on a daily basis that I'm not doing right now? Because until you can live that dream in your mind, it will never become a reality for you. So you must see it very, very, very clearly. And so I don't want you to underestimate the power of really focusing and keeping those dreams in front of you. Keeping your eye on the prize. Mary Kay said, "Which think about you bring about." And let me tell you something. She has so many incredible, powerful statements that I think since she has left us, we've turned them into cute little Mary Kay-isms and these little cliches that we say so easily, but we lose sight of the power that she spoke those words with and the power that she meant in her heart when she said those words, that she really believed them and not that they were cute little phrases that sometimes rhymed. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Okay. So number one, there are no secrets. Number two, you got to dream big and then dream bigger. And secret number three, you've got to care enough to prepare. Care enough to prepare. Some of you may have a business background, some of you may not. Some of you may know someone who has a business background, but through the fact that you're sitting here today, we are all in the world of business. And one of the things that I want to help you understand that is if you want this business to be successful for you, you must treat it like the business that it is. You are a business owner, are you not? So you are in effect a CEO, CFO, everything O, okay? I mean, you're the vice president, you're the financial person, you're the marketing person. You are a one-man band a lot of times, are you not? Think about this. How many CEOs do you think waltz into their boardroom and give a presentation to their potential prospects and clients and business associates and just wing it? And just pray as they're walking in the door, dear God, just let me get through this. How many times have we done that? Do you understand that starting as a new consultant? I remember Linda Tupin saying, everything that you need to know about life and leadership, you will learn at a skincare class. And do you understand that your skincare class is your boardroom? That is your business meeting. That's where you interact with your potential clients, your current customers, your prospective business associates. That's when you share your products and your services. So why do we just wing it? Now understand, please hear me on this. I know as a new consultant, we need some prayers going into those first skincare classes, right? But how many opportunities have we just even unknowingly let them pass us by because we haven't been prepared? How much business have you lost so far because you haven't been prepared? And how much more business are you willing to lose due to being unprepared? And when I talk about being unprepared or being prepared, I don't mean being a walking Mary Kay dictionary or a walking encyclopedia. I'm not talking about just rote, brainless memorization of scripts. What I'm talking about is taking ownership and really being empowered with your business. For example, for our consultants in the room, do you realize that when you signed your beauty consultant agreement, if your sales director was whisked away by aliens the very next day, you have everything that you need to succeed inside that little pink box that we call starter kit. But do we treat it like gold? We'd be like, yeah, I got my mirrors out, now what do I do? Do we really take the time to take ownership of that information? I mean, how many times have you watched that DVD and have you taken notes on that flip chart and have you practiced? You know, before I did my, my first facial ever was on my mother and it took 4 hours. And that was when I realized I needed a little bit of preparation because she said, well, Allison, do you think they're all going to take this long? And I began to realize that, you know what, maybe everyone other than my mother would not be willing to sit there for 4 hours. And so I had some preparation to do. And so I would memorize, and I would listen to the CD of the skincare class, and I would stop it, and I would write out the words. And I would listen to the CD, and I would stop it, and I would write out the words. I mean, I must have done that hundreds of times. And I would then sit in the mirror and look in the mirror, and I would give a skincare class to myself. I would close myself. Now talk about feeling silly, okay? If anybody were to walk into you talking to yourself full blown, okay, energy, everything, like dress rehearsal in the mirror, it's a little weird. But why would I want the first time those words leave my mouth to be in front of an actual customer? Wouldn't I rather feel silly in front of myself? You know, and what really, this wasn't just an idea that I had in my mind, and I will tell you that maybe 2% of what I do is Allison Lamar original ideas, which means the other 98% I have copied from other people. And Gloria says it is perfectly okay to copycat so long as you're copying the right cat, right? And so I really think that has been one of my biggest gifts that people have given to me in this business, is that there is absolutely no good reason that we have to take on trying to reinvent the wheel. The pros have gone before us. The founders of our company literally were out paving the way, like with their machetes, okay? Paving the path for us. And all we have to do is come along and repeat the process. But I think somewhere along the way, we started to take some of that for granted. And we really, I think, just need to look at this business plan with a fresh spirit of gratitude and appreciation for, wow. Not, oh my gosh, do I got to pick up the phone and make a booking call, but look what is available to us if we are willing to do something as simple as pick up the phone. Because rather than looking at it like a snake that might bite you, tape a dollar bill to it. And every time you pick it up, understand that you are making money. Okay? So care enough to prepare. I remember I heard a consultant, she's actually a new director. When I was a new consultant, she was saying that she did the entire skincare class to her daughter's stuffed animals. I thought, well, there's a thought. So that's what really first gave me the idea of really taking ownership and understanding. Do you know, I had a conversation with Daylene White a couple of months ago. And for those of you who may not know Daylene, her consultant number is 00001. She was the very first beauty consultant ever, and she was telling the story that she said Mary Kay actually made her the offer of, would you like to go in business with me and start this cosmetics company? And Daylene said that her ex-husband did not allow her to do that. Can you imagine this company would be a little bit of a different place, right? But that she came in as a consultant instead. And she said, she was telling us the story. Actually, she was my mentor at New National Sales Director Training. And she was telling us the story of the early years in Mary Kay. And she said, the scripts as we know them today that we have in our starter kit were something like 12 years in the making. That Mary Kay literally, from her former sales experience, took those concepts and that same information and transferred it to our product and our skill set. And she would write it, for example, I believe at every skincare class there is a new beauty consultant sitting in, the actual verbatim words. And she would put them out, and then she would say them exactly the same, class after class after class after class, for about 6 months. And then she would take one phrase and reposition it in the sentence and do another 6 months of classes with those exact words said. And she would track her results just from moving those phrases around within the scripts. And then we have the audacity to say, well, those scripts don't work for me. Okay, of course they don't work for us. They're scripts. They're pieces of paper, which means we have to make them work for us. And they're not going to sound like us or feel like, I am guilty as anybody if I was like, I could never say that. It just isn't me. It doesn't sound like me. That's so silly. But guess what? After you've said it 100 times, guess who it becomes? You. And once you have ownership of them, then you can inflect your own personality into them, right? Who is the single most important person at the skincare class? Your customers, right? The people. Absolutely, the people are the single most important thing at the skincare class, the customers. But here's what happens as a consultant. If we don't have ownership of the scripts, if we don't have ownership and truly feel empowered with the information, we're so caught up in the logistics and the semantics and the order of making sure the product's in the right order and everybody has their stuff squirted in the right place. We're so caught up in that we forget to focus on the people. And so when she said everybody has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important, that just wasn't one of those sweet little things that she said. And it's so, so true. And when we learn that skill at the skincare class, guess what? When you become a sales director, you transfer that same concept of caring enough to prepare to your success events and to your unit meetings. And then as a sales director, again, as a new director, you're doing your first unit meeting. It can be a little intimidating. It can be a little bit scary. But when you learn to prepare for those, it's nothing but a glorified skincare class, is it not? It's just on a bigger scale. And so then you learn to prepare for those so that whenever you open the doors of your skincare class, you're 100% prepared. You know what to expect because you've taken the time to prepare and put it all out there. And then you can receive the people and be focused on them instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, hoping that the agendas are in the right order. Right? And then guess what? When you've taken ownership at that level, then you can feel confident and transfer that up a little bit, and you grow and grow and grow, and you stretch just a little bit every time. And then there comes a day when you can talk to a room of 200, 300, 1,000, 10,000 people because the concepts are the same. Truly, if you take the time to prepare with the basics of a skincare class, that same basic knowledge, that same basic understanding will transfer and carry you all the way through every situation that you will find yourself in as a Mary Kay consultant, as a Mary Kay sales director, and as a Mary Kay national sales director. Making sense? So you must care enough to prepare. And then number 4, are we on number 4? Yeah. Okay. Number 4 is my personal favorite. You got to work the numbers. This one took me a while to get. I'm not sure why. We force ourselves to learn things the hard way. I mean, why is that? You know, we hear it, we see it, but no, we got to live it. We must personally live through the pain of some things, right? The great thing about that pain is that, here's the thing. It's great director training. Okay, I want you to, and listen to this because that could sound really bad if you take it out of context, but I want you to listen to what I'm saying. If you force yourself to go through that, what that means is that somebody else along the way is going to force themselves to go through it too, and you will be able to relate to them based on your own personal experience. So every time I was hitting a roadblock or experiencing my own personal frustration, I would just say, okay, this is great director training because somebody, somewhere is going to need to hear this story someday, right? So, must work the numbers. How many of you know a man at all? Any man? Okay, and I know there are a couple men in this room, so forgive me in advance, but let's just talk about that for a second, okay? Men and women have a few ornate differences. Would you agree? Okay, the only one that we're going to talk about today is the fact that women, by nature, tend to be emotionally driven. And men tend to be a little more bottom line, a little more even keel. Okay, how many of you are married, or you've ever been married, or you've been around a married couple? Okay. Have you ever, let's just, for the sake of example, say that you perhaps were in an argument with your spouse. Okay, and maybe it was in the morning before work. And I'm talking, it's a good one, okay? Like heated, okay? Knock down, drag out discussion. And at the end of this knockdown, drag out fight, here's what happens, okay? It's time to go to work, and he can just swoop out the door and go to work, okay? And you know, it does not interrupt his daily tasks. You do not hear him belly aching over it at the coffee pot. Right? He can compartmentalize, put it in his little box, go about his day. Now, don't get me wrong. He can walk back right in that door when he gets home from work and pick up right where he left off. But it will not be a detriment to his daily focus of the job at hand, right? Women, on the other hand, are a little bit of a different situation. Okay, first of all, if that were the case, we're doing good to get out the door at all. Right? Because left to our own devices, we would just assume stay in our bathrobe on the couch, crying, boo-hooing all day long, yakking on the phone to anybody who will listen about our argument and how right we are. Have you ever been there? Don't raise your hand, okay? But let's just say that we do actually make it to work. Anybody who comes halfway within earshot is going to get an earful about it, correct? Okay, I mean, and we are just up, down, up, down. Our emotions are just all over the place. And as a result of that, our business tends to ride the wave of our emotion. And when our emotions are up, our business is up. And when our emotions come down, guess what else takes a nosedive? Business. And just like with anything else, with this Mary Kay business, the hardest part is just getting started. And that truly is with anything, not just with Mary Kay. But we get so caught up in the emotion of it that we fail to look at it logically. But here's what happens. Okay, even for example, let's take an airplane. What part of the airplane ride requires the most energy? Takeoff, absolutely, right? I mean, you can feel it going, as you're going down the runway, getting ready to take off. And once you get up to cruising altitude, you don't feel a thing. Okay, but with our business, what happens is we force ourselves, because we're up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down all the time, we force ourselves through takeoff. Over and over again, the most painful part of the process. But subconsciously, we as humans gravitate away from pain and toward pleasure. So we will only allow ourselves to go through this pain of getting started so many times before we start telling ourselves, I'm not so sure about this whole thing. And we start to give ourselves excuses and give ourselves, almost like we subconsciously set up these protective barriers to keep us from the pain. And this would sound like, if you've ever have found yourself experiencing these conversations before, it might sound something like, well, I didn't really need the money that bad. And this job that I'm in right now, it's not that bad. And, I made it this far in life without Mary Kay, that if I were to just give it up, I would still survive. Have you ever had those conversations with yourself? Okay, here's the thing, is that is exactly what you would do, is you would survive. But the Bible says that we are put on this earth to be more than conquerors, not more than survivors, not more than overcomers. But conquerors, we are here to live in victory, right? Okay, so how does that relate to working the numbers? Here's the deal. When you learn to work the numbers, it takes emotion out of the equation. And when you gain control of your emotion, you will gain control of your paycheck. Sure. When you learn to work the numbers, it takes emotion out of the equation. And when you gain control of your emotion, you will gain control of your paycheck. How many of you are ready to gain some serious control of your paycheck? Okay, good. So let's talk about what those numbers would look like. Here are the numbers that I have found to hold true in my business, and these are the numbers that I pass on to my consultants. And the numbers are this: half the classes that you book will hold. Half the guests who confirm will show. And notice I said confirm, not invite. there's a difference. So half the classes you book will hold, half the guests who confirm will show, and 1 in 5 will sign. So of course what that means is that on average, out of 5 people you share the opportunity with, 1 will take you up on the offer. And so I'm here to tell you girls, everything you want from this business will come from a power start. I double dog dare you to prove me wrong. Everything you want in this business will come from a power start. Now, in my national area, we focus on the perfect 10. And it's 10 classes of 3 people each minimum. And the reason